Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Abstract Essay. Abstract Essay is created to empower artists all over the world, like my new partner, my new co host, Mr. Sal Cosenza.
Thank you, Daniel. Hello, everyone. Good to be on again.
Yes, welcome back, and another episode, another painting of Mr. Sal to scrutinize.
Yes.
Scrutinize. And people, Happy New Year once again. I
Happy New
hope,
Year. And we're thinking about everyone in LA right now. There are these horrible fires, right?
yes,
Wishing everybody well. Our hearts go out to you over there.
climate change, people, climate change. Don't you
Yeah.
think?
I think so. I think everything is getting more intense each year, all of the storms, right? But it's
Yes,
just
more
devastating.
intensify. How much more if summer? Oh, what
Oh,
more wildfire? Usually in British Columbia, we have always wildfire every summer.
yeah, it's pretty
So,
common here in Arizona as
to
well.
yeah,
But it just seems like it's getting more and more frequent and more powerful.
yes. I
So,
want I just want to plug in my climate change book, please. Earth Fever, available where books are sold. It
Earth
is
Fever.
Earth Fever, people.
That's a
It's
good title.
yes, I did also the audiobook. So, if you want to listen to my golden voice, please do listen to my Earth Fever, Unraveling Climate, my climate change book. So, Mr.
Nice.
Sal, which one of your paintings we gonna talk about?
So, in keeping with these trilogies, I know we covered a trilogy last episode. So, I have a few more trilogies that I have explored throughout the last like 5 years. So, this next one, and if you don't mind, I will share screen
Yes.
for those who are watching. I'll start off with a really quick video. It's a time lapse video of one of the pieces from that trilogy.
Yes.
So here's for those who can't see it, it's a gargoyle being rapidly painted. It's a actually called a grotesque. Gargoyles are known as grotesques on the classic cathedrals like Notre Dame in Paris and such. So like my other paintings, I documented the heck out of this, right? So each one of the pieces in this trilogy got this sort of time lapse treatment. I wanted to also show you today some of my concept sketches behind the final paintings. So this was another sort of really exploratory trilogy of mine. It like most of them, it takes a lot of concept, a lot of pre-planning, pre-conceptualization. The concept with these was this idea of voyeurism. And I don't know, Daniel, can you see now
You
the
know,
three frozen images?
no, we cannot see it,
Oh,
Mister.
okay. Let me figure out how to reshare. Hold on. Screen. Oh, here we go. Okay, now can you see them?
Yes, there
Okay.
is.
Yeah, so this trilogy is called Windows to the Soul. It's from 2022. And I obviously got it from that phrase, the eyes are the windows to the soul, which I always found to be a particularly powerful sort of statement, right? Very symbolic, how the eyes are processing the world around us. And, they also reveal the innermost workings of our souls, our thoughts, our desires. Right. So I wanted to expand upon that idea while implementing a lot of voyeurism in these pieces. So for those who are not familiar with that term, voyeurism, it's essentially when you're able to sort of spy or be given, access to something that is private, right? So there are a lot of famous works of art and famous movies that play with voyeurism. Probably one of the most famous is by Alfred Hitchcock. the film
Yes.
called Rear Window, right, from the 1950s. One of my favorite movies, I think, of all. And so, in that story, the character Jimmy Stewart and Grace Kelly, they're able to sort of witness a crime happening, right? But nobody notices them. So obviously there's no crimes happening here. Well, maybe the third one, but we'll get into that. But I created three 20-inch by 20-inch canvases, each one sort of telling its own isolated story, but in a very voyeuristic manner. And I also wanted to actually, let me go down to the sketches. You
Nice.
know, I had a lot of concepts here. First, I wanted to call it the voyeurism trilogy, and that that didn't do it for me, right? So I retitled it the Windows to the Soul trilogy. And so you just have Windows to the Soul part 1, part 2, and part 3. And I was, teaching history. I teach interior architecture history. So I was really interested in trying to incorporate several design movements into these paintings. So part 1 is dealing with Art Deco. Part
Yes.
two is part two is actually dealing with prehistoric design. I referenced a lot the caves of Lascaux in France, which was one of the earliest human-created works of interior design, with its sort of murals in the caves. And then I sort of finish it off with a medieval Gothic sort of chapter in this story, right? And a lot of the features I wanted to include isolation, sort of meditation or prayer, like a prayerfulness, love and embrace, ambiguity. So these are just some keywords that really, you know, got me in the mood to creating these. And as usual, usually I create sketches, right? So here's a very early sketch that I created, uh, and then I developed these sketches further, right? So now we're looking at the part 1 sketch of this dude. He works in the top of the Chrysler building, and it's sort of a late night, and nothing is lighting his office except for the screen, the computer screen, right? So, and he's slightly balding, he's got glasses, he's got his cup of coffee, he's got a stack of papers, and there's a clock on the wall to sort of indicate how late it is. So that was my part 1 sketch. Part 2 is showing this figure, this sort of this woman, like sort of kneeling in sort of prayer or meditation. Some sort of action is happening here, right? And then she's surrounded by these petroglyphs, actually, these images carved onto the rocks of the cave all around her, right? And then the final one, I have this gargoyle. I have some sort of sordid action happening behind some stained glass. You have this, potential affair going on, right? So I really wanted to get into the subplots here. So here's the finalized version of part 1 of Windows to the Soul. Here's the sort of close up of the Chrysler building. You can see the materiality. It's not like fully accurate, but it's meant to capture the spirit of the actual construction of the building, the crown of the building, but it's an extreme close up. So you're getting a close up of some of its triangulated windows. And quick trivia, there used to be, or maybe there still is, a dentist office at this floor of the real Chrysler building, which I
Yes.
got to go up, which was a crazy, bizarre experience, right? But so here we are. Again, we are the voyeurs in this, right? We are able to sort of spy on this fellow as he types away, working on who knows what, right? He seems kind of content, kind of happy, I guess. You see his cup of pencils and rulers. There's the clock. So we're getting sort of a snapshot of this person's night, right? And he's a workaholic, as we can gather, right? And then if I go to the second one, here's Windows to the Soul Part 2. Here's a more developed version of the sketch. the based again on the petroglyphic designs that you could see at the caves of Lascaux in France. Um, this is again some of the earliest examples of humans designing their space, right? Creating the spaces. In this case, the people who drew these, who initially made this artwork, these petroglyphs, were honoring the beasts of burden. They were honoring the hunt, Hunt, right? So it was a celebration of, well, I don't know if it was a celebration of, but it was a recognition that, humans needed these beasts of burden to survive, right? So there was a sort of respect given to these animals. So I always found the caves of Lascaux to be very fascinating. I wanted to up the drama and heighten the drama by having this woman sort of, you know, throwing her fist up in the air. I don't know.
Yes.
Is she angry? Like, what's going on? Is she chanting? Is she praying? Is she meditating? Or is she just pissed off? Right? We don't really know. There's this very dramatic light pouring down on her, and then again, she's ensconced by these creatures. But what's silly is I also threw some Easter eggs in there. These hands that you see, these red hands surrounded by the white chalk. One of them, these hands has a little face on it. I don't know, Daniel, if you recognize that face.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So, and can we say the name of the movie, or will they sue us? I don't know. I
I think
I, I
so.
already I
We
already
can
said
say it.
Rear Window,
I think. Oh,
right? Oh,
okay.
and I said it again. Jimmy
Yes.
Stewart's going to sue it. No, but this is Wilson the volleyball. For
Oh,
those of
okay.
you
Yes.
who know the movie where Tom Hanks
Yes.
gets stranded on an island, uh,
Yes.
need I say more?
Yes.
Um, but again, these are the windows. These are sort of the natural windows we're looking at on this painting, as opposed to the previous one, which is a obviously, constructed window. But it's still this idea of you're peering into some sort of space beyond. So then how do I sort of culminate this trilogy? I go grand, I think, right? I go medieval Gothic. You have this
Yes.
sort of soaring, abstracted, slightly abstracted cathedral that's loosely based on Notre Dame in France again, which was in the news a lot lately, right? They
Yes.
they restored it.
Reviving.
Yes, reviving Notre Dame. So in this case, we're the voyeurs, right? The viewers are the voyeurs. We're witnessing some sort of romantic entanglement going on. You have this couple behind the glass, they're kissing. There's, clothing and shoes and bed sheets sort of strewn about. So they're very much, just they're in the moment. But then
In the
there's this
moment.
fellow, this sort of poor guy outside of the window, sort
Snooping
of
around.
looking in. Yeah, he's got his arm out. I don't know. Are they cheating on him? Who knows what's going on? Something's going on. But
Yes.
then, we're witnessing that. But I think the one who has sort of the front row seat is this gargoyle here.
The
And
gargoyle.
yeah, and this gargoyle is based on a real one that you would see at Notre Dame. But I always love this sort of grin that the gargoyle has. Like you could see he's sort of enjoying this moment in a sort of diabolical way, I think. So we're peering in, but then the gargoyle sort of has a front row seat and is sort of putting his hands on his chin, sort of enjoying it. All he really needs is like a box of popcorn, right? But then throughout the rest of this painting, you have various windows at play, right? You have stained glass windows. These are called trefoils. Trefoils is a very specific type of Gothic design. So there's a lot of Gothic elements present here in this final one, right? So when they go together, I think they work pretty well. They don't connect exactly, but they connect just enough, I feel. So Daniel, I'm curious about your thoughts on this. Let me stop share.
Yes, they are. So awesome. So, Mr. Sal, what materials and tools did you use when you painting windows to the soul?
So Windows to the Soul involved acrylic paint, which I often use. I love acrylics. It dries
Yes.
quickly. You get the result pretty quickly as well. Canvas, right? Tape, a lot of tape again to create those sort of sharp lines and sharp elements found on some of the paintings, and also just to get good verticals and horizontal lines going.
Mm.
I use a lot of tape. I use all the tools, I think.
All the tools that
And
you
again,
prefer.
music. When I paint, I have music on. In this case, I had Pavarotti. I had
Yes. Electric.
MGMT. I had Madonna. I,
Mix.
yes, it was a mixtape.
Oh, that's awesome. So, can you be my guest on Music 101 and let's talk about music?
Yes,
Music.
I love all kinds of music. How about
Yes.
you?
Yes, definitely. That's
Yes,
why I created Music 101. Ah, I'll be
nice.
delighted if you will be part of Music 101, Mr. Sal. So, how did you decide the color palette of Windows to the World
Yeah,
or
so
Windows?
yeah, Windows to the Soul. It's fine. Um,
Windows to the Soul, sorry.
yes, Windows to the World is a restaurant on top of the World Trade Center.
Mountain. Yes.
The more you know, trivia, useless trivia. But no, but the color palette. I know that I wanted each distinct um, installment to have a unique character in terms of the color palette.
Yes.
Maybe if I share, can I share screen once more?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, let me just. So, do you see this drawing?
Yes.
Yeah, so the drawing we're looking at is the very first concept sketch. This sort of established the color palette that I was going for. I wanted a nighttime sort of cool blue,
Yes.
ultramarine blue for the first one with the bright lights of the windows coming through from the triangles of the Chrysler building. Ultimately, I only just had one window lit up and I left the others black, unlit. But then the second one, I had this sort of red, natural sort of cave-like color palette. So a lot of warm colors, a lot of browns and you know reds and browns and blacks, right? A lot of black as well. And then for the third one, the color palette was predominantly gray. If we go to the final, predominantly like a cool gray, but
Cool
then
gray.
the lights coming through from within the cathedral, the yellow light was popping out, creating its own sort of universe of color. And then I love painting stained glass whenever I get the chance. I find it quite fun to just create stained glass, to recreate it through like painting it. Um, and that's if you go to any great cathedral or sacred space, a lot of synagogues as well, you'll see just some beautiful stained glass examples right throughout architectural history. So I'm always taken by stained glass and the power that it sort of brings into a space.
So, Mr. Sal, how about the layers of your painting from the background to the details? How did you plan it?
Yeah, so the layers, I would say my rule always is right as you probably know by now. It's I start at the very background layer and I work my way uh, as we get closer to the foreground. Usually the foreground element is the last thing to be painted. I pretty much stuck with that rule throughout. I think all three of these. Trying to look at them right now and see if there's any example where I did not stick with that. For the most part, that was my rule, to start from the background and work my way towards the front. Every so often you have to go in the back layer and fix something or, add something. And that's where tape comes into play or just being really careful not to get the element to bleed over into a layer that it's not supposed to be in. There's a lot of touch-up work that goes on with creating these types of paintings.
So, Mr. Rosal, what the challenges did you face during the painting process of Windows to the Soul?
Yeah, some of the challenges I think are offering each one had to, and this is a rule for me that I place on every trilogy or every series, every like limited series. If I do three of them or two of them or five in a series, each one has to work in relation to the other installments, but it also has to work on its own. If that does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Yeah, so it's kind of like I always relate it back to a great concept uh, album, right? And
Yeah,
doing Music 101, you've probably studied that term, that, right? Like a concept album, which is this idea of if you have 10 songs on an album, they each relate to each other, but they could also work as a single, right? Each song could work as a single, but it probably better, more effectively works as part of that 10-song story that you're creating, right?
yeah,
So that's a big challenge is always how do you create a story? How do you create a painting that could plug
relate.
in? Yeah, could plug into the rest of the story or relate to the rest of the story while also being strong enough to not just be like filler.
Mr. Sal Cosenza, thank you so much for sharing your Windows to the Soul.
Thank you,
Thank you
as
so much.
always.
Yes. Speaking of being grateful, thank you so much, Player FM, for being number one best abstract podcast. Thank you so much. Because
Nice.
I'm aiming
Congrats.
for abstract podcast to be number one best abstract podcast. And according to FeedSpot, we are number three. At least we're number one by Player FM and number three best abstract podcast by FeedSpot. Thank you so much for this. It really give us inspiration to be strive more, to be the best of the best, and to give you more episodes of Abstract Essay every week because I have a new co-host, Mr. Salco Sensa itself. Where? So, Mr. Sal, do you have something to promote?
uh, Not much. So I did start my next novel. I started it on Christmas Day, actually, at night. I don't
Yes.
know why, but I just felt the urge to. I guess, and I've been starting to sort of work on the first draft. I've got like 1,000+ words going. So that's interesting, I think.
Yes,
How's,
interesting.
how
Looking
about
forward.
yourself?
Looking forward for that. I have a lot of podcasts coming. So mental health 101 this coming February. People, those people suffering from mental health, please support this podcast because we will enlighten you. We will give you inspiration. We give you lots of vitamin D because I think you lack
Yes.
of vitamin D.
That's the answer. I knew it.
Yes.
Someone get me some orange juice.
Orange juice, a
Oh no,
lot
that's
of
vitamin C. What am I saying?
eggs.
I need milk. Yes, eggs and milk.
Eggs and milk, people, if you are suffering from mental health. So, Mr. Sal, can you please invite our listeners to buy your or support your Manhattan?
Buy my book, please. No.
Please.
If you feel inclined, you could check out my book, Manhattan: The Rising War, which is it's available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, etc., etc. And check out my website at salcasenza.com. Reach out anytime. I love hearing your stories as well. What are your creative adventures that you're on at the moment? I
Yeah.
love to see what other people are making and creating. I think that's how we grow. We
Yes.
learn from each other and we share what we're doing with each other.
Yes. Thank you so much, FagePod and Player FM for being part in the list. So, Mr. Sal, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Daniel. As always, have a great rest of the week. See you,
Yes.
everybody.
See you, everybody. And please do listen to my other podcast, Book 101 Review, on my fifth season already, people. Please do listen to my feature author of the month of January, award winning and best selling author. Uh, our episode is already out, and please listen to it. Mordicam, people. See you soon. Thank you, Mr. Sal. And
Yep.
catch you next